I trusted Osahan with everything, not just my heart, but my time, my dreams, and even my bank account. He wasn't just my fiancé, he was my best friend, my future. We spent countless nights talking about the life we'd build together. We dreamed of buying a small house in Tula Hills, the kind with a red roof and a lemon tree in the yard. He said he wanted a quiet life, a family. I pictured us waking up to the smell of fresh fruit and the sound of our children laughing. Every month, I saved money from my salary and sent it to our joint account. I thought we were working toward the same goal, our home, our wedding, our forever. He'd kiss me and say, "We're almost there, babe." And I believed him. I believed every word. But what I didn't know was that I wasn't building a life for us. I was building it for him, and someone else. While I was dreaming about planting roots, he was making secret plans with another woman, using my love, my trust, and my money. And I didn't see it coming. Not even a hint. It was a regular Tuesday evening. I had just come back from work, exhausted but excited because I planned to check how much we had saved for the wedding and the house. We had been working so hard, cutting back on little luxuries, skipping vacations, and eating in more often. Every naira we saved felt like a small step closer to our dream life. So I logged into our joint account with a smile on my face. But my heart dropped. 6,200,000 Nigerian nairas was gone. Just gone. Not transferred. Not pending. Just vanished. My hands started shaking. I refreshed the app again and again, thinking maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I had read it wrong. I even closed the app and reopened it, same balance. Less than 100,000 Nigerian nairas left. I called Osahan immediately. He didn't seem surprised. In fact, he was so calm it scared me. He said it must be a system error and that he'd call the bank in the morning. Then he pulled me close, kissed my forehead, and told me not to worry. "It'll sort itself out, babe. Trust me," he said. And I did. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. I didn't want to start doubting the man I was about to marry. But that night, I couldn't sleep. My chest felt heavy and my mind kept spinning. Something was wrong. Deep down, I knew it. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid. But my gut told a different story. The same man who held me so gently was now hiding something. I could feel it in the silence between us, in the way his eyes avoided mine, in the fake calmness of his voice. Still, I said nothing. I told myself maybe the bank really did mess up. Maybe he was right. I tried to sleep, but all I could think about was the years of saving, the sacrifices, the shared plans all slipping away like water through my fingers. That 6.2 million Nigerian nairas wasn't just money. It was every late night I worked overtime. Every dress I didn't buy. Every moment I believed in our future. And now it was gone. Just like that. 3 weeks before our wedding, Osahan disappeared. Just like that, like a ghost. One day he was sending me voice notes about which song we should dance to for our first dance, and the next he was completely gone. No texts. No calls. Nothing. At first I thought maybe his phone had gotten stolen or his battery had died. I sent a message. Then another. I called, it rang once and went straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I tried not to panic. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he needed space. But as the hours turned into a full day, I knew something wasn't right. I called his mother. No answer. I tried again. This time, my call didn't even go through. I checked WhatsApp and saw the dreaded message. "You can no longer send messages to this contact." She had blocked me. I went to his office. I stood at the reception, trying to keep myself together as I asked if Osahan was around. The woman behind the desk looked at me with a strange mix of pity and awkwardness. "He's on personal leave," she said. He didn't say when he'd be back. I just stood there frozen. I remember nodding slowly and walking out like I had everything under control. But inside, I was crumbling. My wedding dress was already fitted and hanging in my closet. The invitations had gone out. Guests had booked flights. The venue was fully paid for. Everything was ready. Except for the groom. I called his friends. They either didn't pick up or said they hadn't heard from him. One even said, "Maybe he's just stressed." You know how guys can be. I wanted to scream. How do you disappear 3 weeks before your wedding? At night, I'd lie on my bed, staring at my phone, waiting for it to light up with a message or missed call. I checked my email obsessively. Nothing. Just silence. And deep in that silence, reality sank in. The same man I trusted with my heart, my plans, and my money had vanished. The same man I was supposed to walk down the aisle with had run away, just like the 6.2 million Nigerian nairas he too. I was sitting on my bed, still trying to make sense of everything, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend Ada. No words, just a link to an Instagram story. I opened it, thinking it might be something funny to cheer me up. Instead, my heart stopped. It was Osahan, dressed in a sleek cream-colored ikbata, holding hands with Runk, his ex, smiling, laughing, walking into Quail Gardens, my dream venue. The same one we had booked together, toured together, paid for together. I felt dizzy. I looked at the date. July 2nd. That was supposed to be our wedding day. My hands started shaking. I replayed the video, hoping I had imagined it. But there he was, clear as day, placing his palm gently on Runk's lower back as they entered the hall to cheering guests. The decorations, the flowers, even the lighting, all exactly the way I had planned them. The same champagne palette. The same arrangement of orchids and candles. Nothing had changed except the bride. Then I saw the caption. She finally said yes, ring red heart. I almost fainted. I dropped the phone and clutched my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. It was like my body didn't know what to do. This wasn't a random heartbreak. This wasn't just some man leaving. This was betrayal on another level. He didn't just vanish, he took everything I built with him and gave it to her. The worst part? People were cheering for them, liking the post, commenting and power couple. If only they knew the truth. That the ring, the venue, the food, the fireworks, everything was paid for with my money. That the woman smiling in that video was wearing a stolen fairy tale. I stared at the screen frozen. That moment broke something inside me. Not because he chose someone else, but because he used me to do it. He took the wedding I dreamed about since I was a little girl and gave it to his ex. And he didn't even have the courage to tell me. I thought I had lost everything already. But this felt like being. I couldn't stop watching the videos. Every time someone forwarded me a clip or tagged me in a post, I told myself I wouldn't open it. But I always did. It was like a slow-motion car crash, painful but I couldn't look away. The floral arches? I had picked those out. I spent hours going through color palettes, flower types, and seasonal options. I remember standing with the decorator, imagining how they'd look in our wedding photos. Now they were the backdrop to someone else's kiss. The fireworks. That was my idea too. I had dreamed of a magical send-off, something out of a fairy tale. I found the vendor, negotiated the price, and paid the deposit myself. And there they were, fireworks lighting up the sky while he danced with Ronk, both of them smiling like they built that moment from scratch. Then came the photos from Seychelles, my dream honeymoon destination. I had a Pinterest board filled with images of the white sand beaches, the ocean villas, the candlelit dinners by the sea. I even suggested we go there instead of Europe because I wanted somewhere peaceful. A place to rest, to celebrate love. They were in those same villas now, taking selfies and clinking glasses, captioning it, "Our forever starts now." But it wasn't their forever. It was mine. Mine and Osahan's. Planned it. I paid for it. I sacrificed for it. Every extra hour I worked, every side hustle, every party I skipped just to save more. All of it went into creating that life. And now it was being lived by someone else like I never existed. They toasted to new beginnings with champagne I had unknowingly bought. And where was I? Curled up in bed, phone in hand, barely able to move. My apartment was dark. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I couldn't stop crying. My head was pounding but I couldn't sleep. My chest ached but not from sickness, from heartbreak. They were on a beach, kissing under the stars. I was under my blanket, grieving a wedding that never happened, a man who never really loved. They thought they had one. A beautiful wedding, a luxury honeymoon, and now a perfect house to come home to. But what they didn't know was that the house they moved into, the one Osahan told everyone he was renovating for us, didn't belong to him. It was mine. I paid for that house with my own sweat. Every weekend, I'd go there with paint on my clothes and a notebook in hand, checking tiles, measuring curtains, arguing with electricians who overcharged me. I picked every single detail, the granite kitchen counters, the rainfall shower, even the soft close cabinets. I had saved for that house for years before Osahan even came into my life. I bought the land before we got engaged. I just didn't tell anyone. Not even him. He only found out about it 6 months into our relationship, and I remember how his eyes lit up when I told him I had a small property I was working on. That's when he said, "Let's make it our future home." And like a fool in love I agreed. But one thing I never did, I never handed over the documents. The house was still registered under my name. The deed, the receipts, everything. I kept the paperwork locked in a folder at the back of my closet. Not because I didn't trust him, at the time I thought I did. But something in me said, not yet. Maybe it was God. Maybe it was instinct. Whatever it was, I listened. So while they were posting photos of their newlywed nest, claiming he had built it for his new bride, they didn't realize the house belonged to me. Every wall they touched, every room they slept in, all of it was mine, paid for with the same account he had drained, decorated with the dreams he had stolen. He walked into that house thinking he had one. He thought I was just a quiet girl who would cry and move on. But he didn't know I was still holding the one card that could bring it all crashing down. And I was almost ready to play it. I took my time getting dressed that day. Red lipstick, smooth edges, a deep green gown that hugged my figure perfectly. Not too loud, not too soft. Just enough to make people stare and wonder. I wasn't going to their wedding to cry or beg. I was going to make sure they remembered me, not as the girl he left behind, but as the woman he should have never crossed. I walked into the reception with quiet confidence. Heads turned. Some people whispered. Others looked confused. A few already knew who I was. Osahan's ex. The one he left behind without a word. The one who paid for most of what they were celebrating. But I didn't flinch. I walked straight through the crowd with a small, elegant gift bag in my hand. My smile never left my face. I saw his mother, the same woman who blocked me after he disappeared. I walked up to her, hugged her like we were old friends, and whispered, "Congratulations, Mama." Her smile trembled. I didn't look for Osahan or Ronk. I didn't need to. I had already taken back the power they thought they stole. I walked over to the gift table, placed the bag down gently, and turned to leave. No screaming. No scenes. Just silence and red lipstick. People watched me walk out like they were holding their breath, expecting something dramatic. But I gave them nothing. Just grace. The kind that burns quietly. But inside that bag? It wasn't perfume or a card. It was something far more powerful. Tucked between soft tissue paper was the original deed to the house they had just moved into, signed and stamped in my name, Ebel Kachikwu. Alongside it was a legal eviction notice, properly filed and approved. And on top of both, a simple handwritten note that said, "This fairy tale ends at midnight." I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to show up, drop the truth in a pretty package, and walk away. Because when the clock struck 12, they'd find out what real heartbreak feels like. They thought it was a wedding gift, something small, maybe perfume, maybe jewelry, maybe a petty goodbye. But what sat inside that soft white bag wrapped in gold tissue paper was far from ordinary. It wasn't a gift. It was a truth bomb wrapped in silence. At first glance, it looked harmless. Neatly folded papers. A little envelope. A handwritten note sitting on top. But when Ronk opened it, her smile faded. Her hands began to shake. She pulled out the first document, the original deed to the house. Clear as day with bold letters at the top. Registered owner, Ebel Kachikwu. My name. My signature. My sweat. She blinked and opened the second paper. A legal eviction notice. Stamped and sealed by the courts. It clearly stated that the property was to be vacated by the current occupants due to unlawful possession. I had waited until everything was legal, every box ticked. No loopholes. No mistakes. And then the final touch, my handwritten note, placed right on top like a cherry on a cake. This fairy tale ends at midnight. I didn't need to be there to hear the gasps, the confusion, or the rising panic. I imagined Ronk storming through the crowd trying to find Osahan, waving the papers in the air. I imagined his face turning pale as the realization hit. The house he bragged about, the one he gifted her after the wedding, wasn't his to give. It never was. They were living in a dream built on stolen money, stolen love, and stolen promises. And now it was all crashing down. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ruin their wedding with a public scene. I just let the truth speak for itself. Quietly. Legally. Powerfully. The gift bag didn't carry anything sweet or soft. It carried the weight of justice. Of dignity. Of a woman reclaiming what was hers without screaming or begging. Just facts. Just law. Just a note that promised what was coming. Because when the clock struck midnight, the fairy tale would turn back into what it truly was. A lie built on broken TR. At exactly 12:01 a.m., their wedding night turned into something they would never forget. Not for joy but for shock and shame. While the last of their guests were posting stories about how magical the evening was, Osahan and Ronk were arriving at what they thought was their new home. Still in their wedding clothes, she in her glittering gown, He and his Agbada, all smiles and tired laughter. They probably thought they were walking into their fairy tale ending. But the moment they pulled into the driveway, reality hit like a slap. The lights were off. Not a single bulb was on. The house, which had been fully powered just that morning, sat in complete darkness. The gate didn't open automatically. The water wasn't running. Confused, they stepped out of the car. And that's when they saw it. Police officers standing on the front lawn. At first, Osahan must have thought it was a mistake. Maybe a prank. Maybe a neighbor reported something. But then he walked to the front door and saw the laminated paper, bold and official, taped right at eye level. Vacate immediately. Property legally owned by Ms. Ebel Kachikwu. The name hit him like a punch to the stomach. Ronk, still clutching her bouquet, probably stared in disbelief. Her dream home. Her husband's gift. The place they had posted about hours earlier. And now it was being taken away in front of uniformed officers and a growing crowd of curious neighbors. The power had been disconnected by court order. The water shut off. The locks were changed. Everything had been planned down to the minute. I had waited patiently for their perfect wedding night, and then ended it with a quiet reminder. You don't steal from me and sleep peacefully. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. The law handled it all. The officers did their job. The paperwork was solid. And I knew someone somewhere would film the chaos, and they did. As they stood there in the dark, dressed like royalty but helpless like children, everything. I never posted a single word about what happened. I didn't write a Facebook post. I didn't tweet. I didn't drop hints on Instagram. I stayed completely silent. But the universe has its own way of telling stories. And this time it told mine loud and clear. Turns out, someone from Osahan's side, one of his cousins, had been recording everything the night of the eviction. Maybe he thought it was funny, or maybe he just wanted to capture the drama. Either way, his phone caught everything. The moment they pulled up in their wedding clothes, the second Ronk started screaming when she saw the police. The way Osahan's face dropped when he read the eviction notice with my name printed in bold. Even the part where Ronk took off her shoes and stood barefoot in the driveway, crying and shouting. This can't be happening. It was all there. Unfiltered. Raw. Real. And someone, maybe that same cousin, posted the video online. No names. No context. Just the caption. This bride got the shock of her life on her wedding night. Flush face, broken heart. Within hours it started spreading. By morning it had already passed 500,000 views. By the end of the third day it had crossed 2 million. People in the comments were going wild. Some were laughing. Others were furious. Everyone was guessing the backstory. Did she steal someone's man? Did the groom lie? Why were the police there? And through it all, no one even knew it was me behind it. And honestly, I didn't care about the fame. What mattered most was that the truth came out, even without me saying a word. The universe exposed them. Their fake love story unraveled without me lifting a finger. My silence was louder than any post could have been. While they were becoming internet famous for all the wrong reasons, I was finally sleeping peacefully. No anger. No guilt. Just quiet satisfaction. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't a loud outburst. It's letting the truth go viral. While you sit back and sip tea knowing the world fi. After everything that happened, the betrayal, the wedding, the eviction, I could have stayed bitter. I could have hidden away, embarrassed, heartbroken, and angry at the world. And for a while I did. I cried myself to sleep. I questioned my worth. I asked God why He let it happen. But then one morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, what if this pain could help someone else? That's when the idea came. I started a podcast. I called it The Bride Refund, a place where women could share their stories, not just of heartbreak, but of rising after the fall, of reclaiming their power, of turning pain into purpose. I wanted women to know they weren't alone. That being used, lied to, or left behind didn't mean the end of their story. It could be the beginning of something new. At first, it was just me and my mic recording episodes in my tiny apartment. I shared my story in the very first episode, every detail. The savings, the house, the silence, the eviction. I didn't hold back. And that honesty, it hit people hard. Within weeks, the podcast blew up. Women from all over Nigeria, Ghana, and even the UK started sending voice notes and emails, asking to share their own stories. One woman told me how she called off her wedding a day before because she caught her fiancé with her maid. Another said her in-laws treated her like a slave until she secretly started her own business and became richer than all of them combined. The stories were painful, but also powerful. Soon sponsors started reaching out: beauty brands, tech companies, wellness platforms. People wanted to be part of the movement. I began hosting live events in Lagos and Accra. Tickets sold out every time. Women came in groups, wearing matching t-shirts that said "refunded but not broken." We laughed. We cried. We healed together. What Osahan did to me could have destroyed me, but instead it became the reason I rose. I didn't just take my power back, I gave it to others too. Because after the podcast took off and the sponsorship deals started rolling in, I made a decision. I would never be financially vulnerable again. Not to a man. Not to anyone. I took the money I was making and started learning everything I could about real estate. I read books, took online classes, and sat in rooms full of people who knew the game better than me. I wasn't just trying to get rich, I was building security, power, and freedom. Within a year, I bought 4 properties, 2 in Enugu and 2 in Abuja. Beautiful homes, fully paid for in cash. No mortgage, no debt, no joint anything. Every single title deed had my name on it, Ebuka Chikwu. The same name that once appeared on an eviction notice was now appearing on ownership papers. I didn't just bounce back, I built something bigger than what I lost. But that wasn't enough for me. I knew there were other women out there who had gone through similar pain. Women who had given their hearts and their money to men who drained them emotionally and financially. So I started something new, a mentorship program for women recovering from financial abuse. I met with them one-on-one. I helped them create plans. I taught them how to save, invest, and protect their assets. Some were starting over from scratch, but they were hungry to rise, just like I was. One day, I got a message from my cousin who manages rental properties in Abuja. He said, "Guess who just signed a lease for a 1-bedroom flat in Garki?" I laughed before he even said the name. Osahan. The same man who once smiled in my face while draining my account. The man who handed over a house that wasn't his. The man who thought I'd stay down. Now, he was paying rent to someone in my family. There was no need for revenge. Life handled it for me. I had become everything he said I didn't need to be: independent, successful, unstoppable. I wasn't just the ex-fiancé he left behind. I was the comeback queen he could never touch again. And I wasn't done. After the podcast, the real estate, and the mentorship program, I started thinking about how I could expand not just financially but symbolically. I wanted to take back every piece of the life that had once been used to humiliate me. And there was one industry that felt deeply personal: weddings. So I became a silent investor in a rising bridal boutique chain called Phoenix Brides. The name felt perfect, rising from the ashes just like I had. They sold everything from luxury gowns to accessories, and worked with event planners and venues across Nigeria. I didn't put my face on it. I stayed in the background, let the team run things, and just made the big decisions from behind the scenes. A few months into the business, my manager forwarded me an application that had just come in. It was for a vendor partnership, someone wanting to sell custom bridal jewelry through our stores. I almost ignored it, but something about the name caught my eye. Ronke Adebayo. I blinked. Yes, that Ronke. The same woman who married Osahan. The same woman who danced in my dream venue, lived in my house, and toasted to a future that wasn't hers. Now she was trying to build a business, and she needed me to help her grow. My first instinct was to laugh. The second was to feel pity. But I took a breath and reminded myself who I had become. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to get petty. So I did exactly what powerful women do. I made a clean, quiet, and legal decision. We rejected the application. No drama. No explanation. Just a standard email. Thank you for your interest in Phoenix Brides. At this time, we are unable to move forward with your proposal. We wish you the best in your business journey. I imagined her reading it, probably thinking it was just bad luck or stiff competition. She had no idea the woman who once paid for her honeymoon was now in charge of the very door she was trying to walk through. And I didn't even have to say a word. Some wins don't need in. 2 years later, I was no longer the woman who cried herself to sleep. I was booked, busy, and blooming. I had grown into the kind of woman I used to dream of: becoming financially free, emotionally healed, and deeply respected. So when I got the invitation to speak at a prestigious women's leadership conference in Kigali, I didn't hesitate. I packed my best power suit, rehearsed my speech, and boarded the flight with a calm heart and a clear mind. The venue was beautiful, all glass and gold, filled with women from across Africa. CEOs, activists, authors, and entrepreneurs. And me. I had been invited to share my story, not of heartbreak, but of rebuilding, of reclaiming, of rising. As I walked toward the stage, I passed by the refreshment area. Something made me glance over. And that's when I saw him. Osahan. Dressed in a white waiter's uniform, balancing a tray of fruit juice. I stopped walking for half a second. Not out of shock, but because the universe clearly had a sense of humor. Our eyes met. His face dropped. He froze mid-step as if seeing a ghost. But I didn't flinch. I simply smiled. Not the kind of smile that says I won, but the kind that says I healed. The kind that carries peace, power, closure. I turned and kept walking. Past the rows of applauding women. Past the stage lights. Straight to the podium where my name was displayed in bold letters. Ebukachikwu, founder, the Bride Refund Podcast. Real estate investor. Women's empowerment mentor. I stood there, looked out at the sea of faces, and took a deep breath. I'm not standing here because I was betrayed, I began. I'm standing here because I refuse to stay broken. You can lose money. You can lose love. You can even lose trust. But never, never lose yourself. The room erupted in applause. And somewhere in the back, holding a tray and the weight of his choices, was the man who once tried to ruin me. But now I had the microphone. I had the stage. And most of all, I had M. As I stood on that stage in Kigali, the light shining on my face and hundreds of women watching with open hearts, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete. Not because I had money or success, but because I had finally taken my life back. Every piece that was once broken had been rebuilt stronger. And it all started with choosing me. I looked out into the crowd, smiled gently, and said, I'm not standing here because I was betrayed. I'm standing here because I refuse to stay broken. You can lose money. You can lose love. You can even lose trust. But never, never lose yourself. For a moment, the room went completely silent. Then slowly people started standing. Row by row. Clapping. Cheering. Some women wiped away tears. Some held hands. It wasn't just applause, it was a wave of shared strength, like they were standing up for themselves too. I didn't need to mention Osahan's name. I didn't need to go into the messy details. They felt my truth. They saw my healing. That moment reminded me this was never about revenge. I didn't win by destroying him. I won by rebuilding me. I turned my pain into purpose, my silence into a voice, and my heartbreak into a movement. And that's the most powerful kind of victory. Not loud, not bitter, but whole, empowered, and beautifully free.